William White once remarked, "It is hard to design public spaces that wouldn't attract people." However, it's remarkable how often that has been achieved. Cardigan Street is a case in point.
Despite Cardigan's strategic location next to the bustling CBD area and RMIT campus, it really functions more as a thoroughfare with not much activity. It lacks amenity, greenery, and opportunities for lingering. A lot of our participants described Cardigan Street as having a sense of placelessness or nothingness.
When we looked at the surrounds of Cardigan Street, we found that the neighbouring streets which run parallel to Cardigan Street, such as Lygon Street and Swanston Street, didn't have the same problems as Cardigan Street. They were thriving with people, with students, and with public transport. So what was missing? As part of RMIT's urban design course, students engaged in reimagining and redesigning the future of Cardigan Street. The problem they wanted to address was, what are the key ingredients that make a public space socially attractive? Tactical urbanism means something that is temporary, low scale, low cost, and low risk installation. It can include something like a parklet or street closure over a weekend or a pop-up park that emerges suddenly in your neighborhood. So that is exactly what we did here on Cardigan Street over a weekend, to test out ideas of what Cardigan Street could look like in the future, and at the same time allow people who use that space on a daily basis to experience it in 3 dimensions by allowing them to walk through it, sit in it, and experience it, and capture their imagination of how they see this space to be in the future. We researchers asked, how can tactical urbanism play a role in not only reimagining the future of Cardigan Street, but doing it collaboratively and inclusively by bringing along the users of the space in the journey of redesigning their public space. With the funding support from RMIT's Policy, Strategy and Impact Unit, many of RMIT researchers got funding to trial out their future visions for Cardigan Street. Mine was one of them. I selected one of the student designs to be implemented. Part of Cardigan Street was closed off for cars. It was pedestrianized for the full weekend. The street was occupied by seating, shade structures, food trucks, trees, and there were a few place-making activities also organized over the weekend.
To assess the impact of the tactical urbanism intervention, we collected data both before and during the activation period on Cardigan Street. We combined social science methods of data collection, such as go-along video interviews, to capture people's real-time user experience. And we combined that with architectural and spatial syntax methods, such as longitudinal aerial time-lapse videography to capture pedestrian behaviour, along with observational analysis, so we can really think quite holistically about the socio-spatial behaviour of people in the space and how they were interacting with and moving through Cardigan Street, both in its regular state and during the tactical urbanism experience. We found that a lot of the users we spoke to, especially as compared to professionals in urban design and planning, tended to struggle to kind of really see all the spatial change around them and the potential spatial changes, and to think more creatively and long-term about what public space could look like for them. Despite this, however, so many of the methods used in community consultation when it comes to urban renewal projects relies heavily on 2D diagrams, 2D images, as well as increasingly the use of VR experience. But it doesn't allow users to really actually experience the sensorial, human-scale intervention and potential of a street. And we found that tactical urbanism is a way they can do that. Tactical urbanism lets them manipulate and experience and imagine space at a life-size scale in real time, touch it, feel it, play with it. And we've noticed that we get just much more creative responses and much more ambitious responses from users about what they want to see in the public realm. Tactical urbanism is a really powerful tool, but without the complementary and interdisciplinary methods on how to analyse its impact, it alone can't help us inform future redesign of public space. And so this is the gap that our research seeks to address by offering a methodological contribution and identifying ways we can think relationally about how people engage with, and as well as how they envision the public spaces around them in real time, in situ. So by experimenting with short-term interventions in the form of tactical urbanism, we gain critical insights that can help us inform long-term strategies around public space and city design.
The findings from tactical urbanism were clustered around three themes. One was how the people behaved in the spaces, that is socio-spatial behaviors. What were people's sensorial experiences? And third is understanding physical design features such as material, form, organization to such behaviors. Socio-spatially, our findings suggest that foot traffic increased notably and informal social interactions blossomed during activation period. Users gave overwhelmingly positive feedback, with many noting the street felt more welcoming and vibrant. Tactical urbanism also challenged people's behaviors. Our psyche that tells us to be on the curbside and not step onto street kicked in. That curbside subconsciousness kept users from walking over the car-restricted streets. Rather, they kept along the footpath or stood on the edge of the building. Some users behaved this way also because of their feeling of being an outsider or uninvited guest to an RMIT organized event on the street, given the dominance of RMIT buildings and RMIT students.
So our research findings really highlight and affirm the power of small-scale and temporary interventions in the public realm.
Sensorially, most users appreciated the vibrant atmosphere. However, a few users preferred the quietness of non-activated period. That is, they didn't want this many people on the street. They preferred the noise of the traffic as compared to people, suggesting they didn't want change.
With the installation, I love it. I would love to see this street like this all of the time. I drive down here almost every day, and so it feels much more community-centred and somewhere that I would like to come and be.
While some users could articulate and pinpoint spatial features that contributed to feeling of conviviality and social destination, many struggled to articulate. Some of the desired design elements during activation period included more shaded areas, places to eat and talk as the materiality of interventions. Participants who were not designers or planners could more easily articulate preference about seating types, shading, pedestrianization, and visual permeability. This type of spatial imagination emerged not through abstract consultation, but through direct, three-dimensional sensorial engagement.
What would be the future you envision for this site?
I'd love to see a lot of these buildings opened up a little bit more, actually made a bit more fit for purpose. I'd love to see it designed in a way that, maybe sometimes cars can, but then you can pull all the stuff out and you can really quickly flip it around.
They can make it like pedestrian-only walking streets, and maybe set up some food stalls. Maybe I will come here very often. Yeah.
There hasn't been that many people coming down here and then having to go, I can't get where I want to get. And with the train, I think there's a train station coming. I would love to see that there's a program of activity that's happening throughout the year.
If there was more greening, absolutely. I love the concept of having the street closed or part of the street closed. If it was green, there was more greening around it, it would be amazing.
In collaboration with Myrtle and Rachel, we developed a design for Cardigan Street as a civic square. One of the challenges of this location, Cardigan Street, was that the street needs to be accessible to emergency vehicles. This is why we couldn't close down the street for the entire weekend, because it always needed to have somebody there to open it up if required. This shows the kind of, I guess, limitations of tactical urbanism, because even though on one hand tactical urbanism is able to disrupt the usual rules of urban design, those rules are still applied when you are going through a permitting process to be able to, get permission to do these things, right? And closing down a whole street is definitely something you need permission to do. Temporary is the new permanent. Tactical urbanism been happening for quite some time. There was increased permission to experiment with urban spaces due to the disruption in urban life. And so this is where tactical urbanism is able to show possibilities, to activate people's imagination, to bring people together in urban life experiments.
In summary, tactical urbanism proved to be a valuable tool to democratize revisioning and redesign of a public space. The Cardigan Street intervention showed us that placing public knowledge at the center of designing public space is critical to achieve improved social infrastructure. However, tactical urbanism is not a panacea for solving all the problems of collaborative city planning and design. Without capturing such rich data of people's experiences, their desires and aspirations and values, mere implementation of tactical urbanism doesn't give us understanding the potentials of the public space that it could be. Overall, tactical urbanism prototyping proved successful in highlighting what people want more of, that is amenity, texture, flexibility. The challenge remains in translating temporary enthusiasm of tactical urbanism into durable, inclusive, and strategically integrated design.